I once believed that my life was a model of perfection, a seamless blend of love, loyalty, and stability that I had built with my wife, Emily. My world revolved around our shared dreams, the gentle comfort of our home, and the unwavering trust one placed in her. I prided myself on our relationship and the strong foundation we had built together over the years. I had no inkling that beneath the surface of our blissful routine, an unimaginable secret was lurking, ready to shatter everything I held dear. I still remember the early days of our marriage. Emily's laughter filled our home, and her eyes sparkled with the promise of a future full of hope. We spent lazy Sundays together, making plans for the years ahead. I worked hard at my job, and together we created a sanctuary, a place where love reigned and trust was paramount. To outsiders, our marriage was enviable, the epitome of a perfect union. I never doubted the strength of our bond. I believed it was unbreakable. But as the years went by, subtle cracks began to appear, small, almost imperceptible details that I dismissed as the normal ebb and flow of married life. I noticed that Emily's gaze sometimes drifted away during our conversations, as if she were lost in thought or recalling something far removed from our everyday reality. There were moments when her smile seemed to hold a secret, a quiet sadness that she quickly concealed. I tried to reassure myself that these were just fleeting moments, products of stress or fatigue, nothing more. One cool autumn evening, I returned home earlier than usual from work. The air was brisk and the sky a deep indigo as I stepped through our front door. I had been looking forward to a quiet dinner with Emily, expecting the comforting routine of our evening together. Instead, I was met with an eerie silence that filled the house. As I made my way toward the living room, I heard soft laughter coming from the hallway. I paused, confused by the sound. It was a laughter I did not recognize. I followed the sound and found Emily in an intimate conversation with a man I had never seen before. At first, I thought it might be a colleague or a friend visiting unexpectedly. But as I watched from the doorway, I noticed something unsettling about the stranger. There was an uncanny familiarity in the way he looked, an intensity in his eyes that seemed to mirror something within Emily's. Their conversation was low and secretive, punctuated by glances that sent a chill down my spine. I felt a pit of dread forming in my stomach. Who was this man, and why did I feel as if I'd seen him before? Later that night, as I lay awake in our quiet bedroom, the image of that mysterious man and the secretive smiles exchanged with Emily haunted my thoughts. I began to question every interaction we'd ever shared. I reread old messages on my phone and recalled a few inexplicable moments where Emily's eyes had shone with an unspoken longing. A gnawing suspicion took root in my heart, a feeling that something was terribly wrong in our perfect life. In the days that followed, I searched for clues to explain the strange behavior I had witnessed. I noticed that whenever Emily received phone calls late in the evening, she became unusually quiet, her expression unreadable. I observed that her laughter, once pure and joyful, sometimes carried an undercurrent of melancholy. I began to piece together a pattern, a subtle shift in the dynamics of our relationship that I had once taken for granted. Then one evening, while I was organizing some old family photos in the attic, I discovered a faded portrait of a man who bore an uncanny resemblance to me. His eyes were a mirror image of my own, his smile familiar yet distant. The photograph was dated decades ago, and as I examined it closely, I recognized something even more startling, a name scrawled on the back, Thomas. I recalled vague family whispers about a long-lost twin, a secret hidden away for years. Could it be that I had a twin brother, someone I had never met, someone whose existence had been kept from me? The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. I remembered vague childhood recollections, fragments of a story that had always seemed like a myth. My parents had rarely spoken of a twin, and if such a secret had been kept, it would explain the uncanny similarities between my features and the man in the photograph. My mind raced with questions. Who was Thomas? And what did he have to do with Emily's recent behavior? The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together in a way that I had never imagined. In that moment of realization, I felt a cold, creeping fear. Had Emily somehow discovered the truth about my secret twin, and had she fallen under his spell? The very idea was absurd, yet as I searched my memory, I recalled that familiar intensity in the eyes of the stranger I had seen that evening. Could it be that this mysterious man was none other than Thomas, my long-lost twin, and that Emily had been drawn to him in a way that defied logic and reason? The thought was both horrifying and incomprehensible. How could my wife, the woman I loved with all my heart, harbor a secret attraction to someone who looked exactly like me? I felt a surge of betrayal unlike anything I had ever experienced. The perfect life I had believed in was shattering, and with it, the foundation of trust that had once defined me. That night, as I lay awake, the image of Thomas's face from the old photograph haunted my dreams. The notion of a forbidden reflection, a mirror image of myself, drawing Emily into a web of passion and deceit, was too surreal to fully comprehend. But the evidence was mounting, and I knew that I could no longer ignore the signs. My heart was torn between disbelief and a desperate need for answers. I resolved that I would have to confront this unimaginable truth, even if it meant tearing apart everything I had once held dear. The journey that lay ahead promised to be filled with heartbreak and painful revelations, but I could not continue living in a state of uncertainty. I had to discover the truth about Thomas and what role, if any, he played in the unraveling of my marriage. As I sat there in the dark, a single thought echoed in my mind. My perfect world was crumbling, and nothing would ever be the same again. The cracks in our facade had widened into a chasm, and I was left to navigate a reality where betrayal and forbidden attraction had invaded every corner of my soul. This is where my story truly begins, the moment when the perfect veneer of my life gave way to a hidden truth that would shatter everything I believed in. The days following that fateful revelation blurred into a haze of confusion, pain, and relentless doubt. I found myself caught in a web of conflicting emotions, each day a painful reminder that my life was no longer the secure haven I had once known. Every interaction with Emily now carried a heavy weight of unspoken questions. I began to observe her with a wary eye, scrutinizing every glance, every whisper, as if they might reveal the secrets that had been hidden from me for so long. I took to wandering the quiet streets at night, seeking solace in the darkness as I tried to come to terms with the possibility that my wife had been drawn to Thomas. The idea seemed absurd, a betrayal so twisted that it defied all reason. Yet, the more I thought about it, the more the signs aligned in my mind. I recalled the soft, intense look in her eyes whenever she mentioned feeling alone, the way her laughter sometimes faltered when we were together, and the secret smiles she reserved for moments when she believed I was not watching. I began to search for evidence, revisiting old conversations and poring over texts that once seemed mundane. Every detail now took on a sinister significance. I discovered that Emily had been staying out later than usual, often claiming to meet with friends. When I asked her about it, her responses were vague and evasive. I felt an ever-growing sense of isolation, a realization that I was no longer the center of her world. In its place, a mysterious figure had begun to occupy the shadows of our life together. One evening, as I was cleaning the study, I stumbled upon a folded letter tucked away in a drawer. Its contents were carefully hidden, yet the words leapt off the page, declarations of longing, secret meetings, and an inexplicable attraction to a man who bore an uncanny resemblance to me. My hands trembled as I read each line, my heart sinking with every word. The letter did not mention a name, but the descriptions, the deep, soulful eyes, and the familiar smile stirred memories of the long-lost twin I had discovered in the attic. The revelation plunged me into a spiral of despair. I questioned my own sanity. How could it be that the very person I had built my life around was now sharing a secret passion with someone who looked like me? I felt betrayed on a level I had never imagined possible. The image of Thomas loomed large in my mind, a spectral reflection of my own identity, twisting the very nature of my relationship with Emily into something unrecognizable and forbidden. I began to record every detail in my journal, desperate to capture the mounting evidence of a betrayal that seemed almost surreal. I described the hushed conversations, the furtive glances, and the small, seemingly insignificant moments that now held a dark significance. My words became a testament to the pain of watching my once perfect marriage unravel before my eyes. Every day, I was tormented by the image of Emily laughing with Thomas, the same look of deep longing that I once reserved for her. I remembered the times we had shared dreams together, the plans we had made for our future, and now all of that seemed tainted by the realization that a forbidden reflection had entered our lives. The more I tried to ignore the signs, the more undeniable they became. I felt as if I were living two separate realities, one where my marriage was perfect and full of promise, and another where betrayal lurked behind every smile. I began to see that the truth was unavoidable. The possibility that my wife had fallen for my long-lost twin was a betrayal of such magnitude that it threatened to destroy everything I had ever known. It was a truth that cut deeply into the fabric of my identity and left me questioning who I was and what I had once believed in. With every passing day, I felt myself sinking further into despair. The vibrant colors of our shared past had faded into a monochrome landscape of sorrow and mistrust. I questioned my own judgment. wondering how I had been so blind to the signs that had been present all along. The love that I had cherished was now intertwined with a secret that I could neither ignore nor erase. Despite the overwhelming darkness, a small ember of determination began to glow within me. I knew that I could not continue living in this state of uncertainty. I needed to confront the truth, even if it meant facing the unimaginable pain of confirming that Emily's heart had strayed to Thomas. I resolved that I would find the answers I so desperately sought, no matter the cost. Late one night, as rain pattered softly on the windows of my empty apartment, I made a decision. I would no longer allow the shadows of betrayal to dictate the course of my life. I would search for Thomas, I would demand answers from Emily, and I would force the secrets to come to light. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty and heartbreak, but it was the only way to reclaim the trust and identity that had been torn asunder. That night, I closed my journal with a heavy heart and vowed that tomorrow I would begin the journey toward confronting the forbidden reflection that had invaded my life. I knew that the truth might shatter the remnants of my perfect world, but it was a necessary step if I was to ever find a way forward. The day had finally come when I could no longer live with the weight of unanswered questions. With a heart full of trepidation and determination, I approached Emily one crisp morning. I had rehearsed what I would say countless times in my mind, yet when I saw her, the familiar warmth in her eyes now seemed distant and guarded. I knew that I had to confront her, demand the truth about the mysterious man, about the secret that had been hidden in the shadows for so long. We sat together in the quiet of our living room, the silence between us heavy with unspoken tension. I cleared my throat and, with a voice trembling with pain and anger, asked, "Emily, please tell me, what is going on? Who is Thomas?" Her eyes widened in shock and fear, and for a moment, I could see the guilt and regret flickering in her gaze. She hesitated, her hands trembling as if unsure whether to reveal the truth that had been festering in our midst. At last, tears welled in her eyes, and she confessed in a shaky whisper. She told me of the loneliness that had crept into her heart, the overwhelming sense of isolation despite the life we had built together. She explained how, in her moments of despair, she had found solace in the presence of a man who looked just like me, a man who she described as a reflection of everything she had once admired in me. That man, she revealed, was Thomas, my long-lost twin, whose existence had been a well-guarded family secret. She spoke of clandestine meetings and tender moments that had slowly evolved into a forbidden romance, a connection that defied logic and shattered every vow we had ever made to one another. The room seemed to spin as I listened, my mind unable to comprehend the magnitude of her betrayal. Every word felt like a knife twisting in my heart. I remembered the old photograph I had found in the attic and the growing suspicions that had plagued my nights. Now, the truth was laid bare before me, a truth that was as absurd as it was devastating. I struggled to reconcile the loving Emily I had known with the woman who had allowed herself to be drawn into this impossible liaison. I demanded to know when it had all begun, how long she had kept this secret, and why she had chosen to betray me in such a way. Her answers came in fragments, each one a painful reminder of the gradual disintegration of our once perfect life. She admitted that the attraction had grown slowly over time, a secret bond that had blossomed in the quiet corners of our existence. She apologized, tears streaming down her face, and begged for forgiveness, but I could feel that the betrayal was too profound to be mended with mere words. In that charged moment, my heart was torn apart by a mix of emotions: anger, sorrow, disbelief, and a deep, unrelenting sense of loss. I felt as if I were watching my entire life crumble before my eyes, each memory of love now tainted by the stain of deception. I told her that I needed space and time to process everything, that I could not accept this reality without a complete understanding of how our perfect world had fallen apart. That day marked a turning point in my life. I realized that I could no longer cling to the remnants of a past that had been irreversibly altered. The truth, however painful, had set me on a path that I could not ignore. I left our home that afternoon, my mind a whirlwind of emotions, and resolved that I would find a way to rebuild my identity from the ruins of betrayal. I was determined to uncover every hidden secret, to confront the ghosts of the past, and to reclaim the trust that had been so callously shattered. As I walked away from the house that day, I felt as though I were leaving behind not only a home, but an entire life that I had once known. The unveiling of the truth had cut deep, and I knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with pain. Yet, I also recognized that this was the only way to begin healing, a way to shed the weight of deception and start anew. In the months that followed the painful confrontation, I embarked on a journey toward healing, a slow, arduous process of reclaiming the shattered pieces of my life. I moved into a modest apartment far from the echoes of our former home, seeking solace in the quiet solitude that allowed me to confront the raw, unfiltered pain of betrayal. Each day was a battle as I worked to understand not only the enormity of what had been lost, but also the parts of myself that had been hidden beneath the veneer of trust and complacency. I sought the help of a therapist and attended support groups where I met others who had experienced similarly devastating betrayals. Through these sessions, I learned that healing was not a linear journey but a complex, often painful process of acceptance, self-reflection, and gradual forgiveness. I began to document my thoughts and emotions once again in my journal, chronicling the slow emergence of hope from the depths of despair. The act of writing became a lifeline, a way to externalize the agony and, in time, transform it into a force for renewal. I revisited memories of happier times, of moments when the love between Emily and me had been unblemished by secrets. I recalled the gentle touch of her hand, the shared laughter, and the dreams we had woven together. These memories, though now tinged with sorrow, reminded me that love had once been real, that there was a part of me that still believed in the possibility of a new beginning. Slowly, I began to rebuild the life that had been torn apart. I reconnected with old friends, resumed hobbies that had long been abandoned, and allowed myself to feel again, both the pain and the hope that came with every step forward. I realized that although the betrayal of a forbidden reflection had left an indelible scar on my soul, it did not have to define the entirety of my future. In the quiet moments of introspection, I found that I was beginning to understand the complexity of human frailty, and with that understanding came the possibility of redemption. A tentative meeting was eventually arranged with Emily and Thomas, the enigmatic twin who had become the center of my greatest betrayal. In a neutral setting, a small, understated cafe, I faced the two people who had shattered my world. The conversation was raw and unfiltered, filled with apologies, confessions, and a deep, shared sorrow. Emily expressed regret for the choices she had made, while Thomas, with a mixture of remorse and confusion, tried to explain his own unexpected feelings. It was a moment of painful catharsis, a recognition that the past could not be changed, but that understanding might pave the way for a fragile form of closure. Walking away from that meeting, I realized that while the scars of betrayal would never fully fade, they had begun to transform into symbols of survival, a testament to my capacity to endure even the most shattering of truths. I understood that redemption was not a destination but a continuous process, a series of small, deliberate steps toward reclaiming a sense of self that had been buried under layers of deception. Now, as I sit in the quiet of my modest apartment and reflect on the journey that has brought me here, I see a man who has been irrevocably changed by the unthinkable betrayal of a forbidden reflection. The discovery that my wife had fallen for my long-lost twin shattered everything I believed in. But in facing that darkness, I have also uncovered a strength I never knew I possessed. I have learned that even in our darkest moments, the human spirit has the resilience to rise again, to forge a new identity from the remnants of a broken past. This is my story, a chronicle of love turned to sorrow, trust betrayed, and the long, winding road toward rebirth and redemption. Though the shadows of the past still linger, I choose to move forward, guided by the quiet light of hope and the unyielding desire to rebuild a life defined not by the mistakes of others, but by my own capacity for healing and renewal.